Sherwood Anderson is a largely forgotten figure who was nevertheless very influential at his peak. Though originally from a business background, he used his novels to challenge the American dream and in the process introduced several relevant Freudian characteristics to American fiction. Winesburg, Ohio was less groundbreaking than it was influential. Ernest Hemingway cited him as one of the main influences for A Simple Language, which gave both of their work their mild tone of parable. Winesburg is a series of short stories all loosely connected by the dispatches of a young journalist, George, who meets all these characters. It is full of strange characters and bizarre tales, but they all tap into the psychological mindset of rural America at the beginning of the 20th century. You get stories like Hands, where a successful berry picker gets chased out of town for supposedly being gay, or Paper Pills, about a doctor who takes scraps of paper and then makes little pill-shaped pebbles out of them. There's also stories like Thinker, or Queer, and Drink, all containing men who become outcasts because of their unobtrusive nature. Stories like Mother deal with women who simply long for adventure, but it doesn't exactly represent sexual tension. George's mother longs to go back to her days as an actress, and she even acts out the old parts. There's an inability for many people in this novel to perform how they should, but many perform nonetheless. This book also chronicles George's transition from naive, small-town boy to adult, from rural living to urban. There are several chapters that describe George reading his characters incorrectly, like the one entitled The Strength of God, where he has trouble understanding the meaning of the Reverend's words. Anderson seems to be implying that George must understand what lies beneath the American experience, but as he heads off towards the city at the end of the book, we get a feeling he hasn't quite understood everything. The opening, a sort of invocation of the muse, begins with the Book of the Grotesque, which tells of the memories of an old writer who imagines all of those who have passed on, how they all lived principled lives based on single ideals, but tragically cannot appreciate the variety of life and all of its views. This is the grotesque part of it, and this is the grotesque part of the novel. They died not knowing the lives and thoughts of others. This book pays homage to the variety and complexity of life, and to fiction itself, which can contain these many windows of existence. Anderson was one of the first to employ a Freudian analysis of American life through a naturalistic style. Influenced by writers like Stephen Crane, the pioneer of American naturalism, Winesburg argues that our repressed desires end up shaping us and defining who we are. It also argues that they can possibly destroy us. As mentioned before, the style of the prose is very simple. I think what Anderson is trying to do here is universalize the small-town narrative. It's almost like we're reading mythical parables of a bygone day, and almost 100 years later, we are. Again, naturalism sought to discover the governing social patterns and show how its characters, however hopeful, could not escape them. Perhaps the only solution for youth like George is to run away. In the book's dedication, Anderson makes the explicit point of diving beneath the surface of everyday life and properly analyzing the psychological experience of America. People are emotionally unstable because they need to keep their thoughts to themselves to best represent their public expression of American ideals. The grotesque in this book is not necessarily ugly, but the collective repressed desires must somehow come out, and that has bad consequences. That's not to say they're not worth appreciating. Unlike the Henry James novel of the 19th century, Anderson moves away from the aristocratic classes and shows that the grotesque and the forgotten are perhaps worth appreciating. They are beautiful in that they are layered and mysterious. This book uses a simple style on supposedly simple people, but its main purpose is to prove that they are infinitely complex, an endless string of brazen dreams, desires, and of course, stories.